Okay, so we had finished the verse number, if you remember, we had finished the verse number 21st. The 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. We have three more verses left in this chapter. And thank you, Chinmay. I'm happy that you have located that website. You could share the address, the e-student Vedanta, where most of the records are there. And I think going forward, the critical verses, if you could cut and paste the PDF of that particular verse, not all, but one or two, which could be a difference from others, that would be wonderful. Now, Trividham Narakasyedam Dwaram Nasanamatmanaha Kamam Krodhas Tatha Lobhas Tasmad Etat Trayam Tyajet. That is the general advice. That because the doubt is in the mind of the student, that how do I actually defeat these Asuri Sampath? How should I stay away from this? Because there are so many you mentioned, it's not one or two, it's quite a few you mentioned. And therefore, Bhagavan makes it easy for him. He's saying, forget about the details. Focus on the three entry points, after which the agonizing experience of being trapped by these negative qualities ravage your life. The entry gates are simple. That is kama, desire, but mostly pratisiddha desire, which is prohibited by the Shastras, which is not advisable, ill-advised desires, and if you are trying to fulfill them. The second thing he mentioned is krodha, anger, and finally greed. So desire, greed, and anger, and they are kind of all related to each other. When they intensely manifest, normally not an issue, you can deal with them. When they intensely manifest and they blind us, there's a lot of problems. And if we want to understand how that happens, we have to go back to the chapter 2, where Bhagavan mentions how it starts with desire and then finally the person becomes completely blind. He has mentioned that there. He has explained that in detail. Because Bhagavan in that chapter sort of hinted as to how the Kauravas, who are otherwise as well educated as the Pandavas, chose to be they chose to be on the wrong side of the moral code of conduct. They denied a few chances to their own cousin brothers, and now they're ready to fight a war. All these guys were asking for were 5 villages. That's all. Give us 5 villages. We would have our small kingdoms and we'll survive. They didn't want to give that away. So there is the war going on. So these are the three doors. Bhagavan is giving them advice. And why is he giving this chapter 16? Because he earlier in the Purushottama Yoga told him what are the ultimate goal. And he earlier mentioned about the Swabhava, how it undergoes certain vikaras. And what are they? The Sattva-tama rajas and how they play out. He mentioned all that. And then he says, okay, you want to be Gunatita, you have to meditate on me. Having mentioned the summary of Bhagavad Gita in chapter 15, then he's mentioning there are certain things which I have told you how to do it, but there are certain danger signs, certain don'ts that you need to always keep in mind. And that's how the chapter 16 was imagined and shared with Arjuna. So this is not a very a chapter of fundamental advices, except for the last verse, and we'll discuss that today. So he has spoken at length about what are these Asuri Sampads are all about, why the Rakshasi Sampad is not given a special mention. It's part of the Asuri Sampad, and that Asuras are not demons with any physical deformities. All of us as human beings carry these energies which are negative, and these negative energies will pull us down. And once we allow this negativity to take possession of us, we'll slide down from one level of imperfection to another level of imperfection, which is worse off. So our chances of recovery and return to our pure self will become ever so difficult. And therefore, we have to work harder, and we need maybe a bit of luck. Bhagwan says, no luck if you do not look at me. You have to take that turn, you have to make that initial turnaround, then the gates will open. And Bhagavan says, If I recognize that you deserve to go down, I'll give you temptation to commit papas. And then as soon as you give in, that papa becomes the reason for your further downfall. And it's all automatically getting done, engineered. But because I'm Vishwanayanta, you people praise me and blame me for everything wrong that happens to you, even though all this is happening because of your own ignorance and because of your own karmas, because it's so much difficult for us to accept everything as done by us that we want to externalize it. We want to attribute it to chances and accidents and divine grace or the lack of it or the absence of it. So Bhagavan says these are the three gates, mind you. The danger is, and it's like when you have a powerhouse or anything, substation, what do you see there? You have that skull and two bones in a cross form written in a danger. Don't come anywhere close, 440 volts or something. Similarly, Bhagavan says these three doors, no, no, we shouldn't go anywhere close to them. Etatrayam jazatah kim syad iti tatraha. Now the doubt might emerge in the minds of the student. Okay, I recognize these three doors, so what? Then what happens? Then Bhagavan explains that if you could stay away from these three gates, then you can open for yourself new possibilities, the spiritual ascent, the movement upwards that can happen. And he's capturing that in a beautiful verse. एतैर्विमुक्तः कौन्तेय तमोद्वारैस्त्रिभिर्नरः आचारयत्यात्मनः श्रेयस्ततो याति परां गति. एतैहि vimuktah. If he's free from these three gates of hell: anger, greed, and attachment. Kaunteya Tamodvarehi, and these are the gateways to darkness. We call it hell or anything, but it's gateways to ignorance, darkness, downfall. Trivi Nara. Nara is what? All of us, any of us. Acharayati Atmanaha Sriyaha. Then what is he likely to do? If a person has a few addictions, very bad addiction, whatever, if he has, then he's sent to a rehabilitation center and he recovers. Then he comes back home and he finds he has wasted a lot of time. But he has decided to stay clean, not to go back there. Then what does he do? He starts taking interest in games. He would like to play. He would like to interact with people, read good books, take interest in literature, spirituality, and do some good economic activities. He's a regenerated person. Similarly, if we can avoid these three gates to hell, to darkness, then acharati atmana shreyaha, no more priya, because these things are priya, because they appeal to your emotions, to your low self. But you'll do what is in the interest of your higher self, in the interest of your spiritual journey upwards. Acharayati, a fellow follows what? A fellow follows the diktats of dharma, of the scriptures. Atmana Shreyaha. And then what happens? If he starts doing good things, what happens? Obviously, he's going to get moksha in a graded manner. If a person has made a lot of losses, you could have, again, mid-air, dangers and risks. You take the example of this spice jet, right? It was 4 5 years back, it was going to fold up. I mean, in a way, more or less fold up. Then they bring back one guy and the leadership goes in the hands of somebody else and he tries to make a turnaround in that company and everything is fine, and then suddenly they haven't paid the dues to a particular creditor, and then what does the creditor do? He goes to the court, and what does the court order? He says, okay, liquidate it, sell it. Then he gets a threat. That's a threat. He says, okay, you deposit so many millions in a couple of weeks and then you have a respite. It's a big empire, the second largest private airlines in India. I mean, in India now we have no public airlines. So what happens is that Bhagwan is kind of has given us some threats in this chapter, saying that if you go anywhere near these three gates, you might get trapped in the zone of darkness and ignorance. Then you will fall down. But if you stay away from them, most likely you will be interested in what is in your long-term interest. Once you take one positive step forward, I take 2 steps forward to rescue you, and therefore your journey upward starts not at one go. All of a sudden, you don't become a punyatma and you do not study Vedanta, you don't get moksha. But whatever little, it's like a person didn't have a job and suddenly he makes a little profit. He was in the red and he starts making a little profit. He may not have repaid all his loans, but he starts smiling. He feels relaxed. Positive things are happening. And that's what Bhagavan says. Then he acharati atmanah shreyaha. Then they know there are certain positive incomes are happening. Still he's in loss, but there is improvement. And finally, he'll break even and then he'll start making profits. So even Param, the thing he says. Let's look at how he explains the details here in the context in which we are discussing this chapter. Etehi kama krodha lobhehi. Kama, krodha, and lobha. Desire or attachment, craving, and then anger and greed. Vihi tamodvarehi. These are the gateways to darkness. Naraka sadhani, and these gateways lead us where? They lead us to the hell. The worst possible imagine zone of human existence, which is most uncomfortable, painful. That is what is referred to as. And they become bimukta because they are free from any temptation to enter these 3 gates. They are liberated in a quite quick sense. They are not really liberated, but they are kind of free from the burden of these dangers. They are free from the risks of going to hell because they have stayed away from these gateways to darkness. So bimukta means virahitaha. So they are what? Ajnana virahitaha, dosha virahitaha. They are free from the fault of falling prey to darkness. Then what that guy will do? He's free from intoxication now. He has got rehabilitated. He wants to make a new beginning. Purushaha acharati atmanaha shreyaha. He does what is in the long-term interest of himself or herself. Yad idam veda bodhitam hi kaunteya. What is shreya here? He puts it in a very simple words, whatever is advised by the scriptures. So whatever is mentioned in the Vedas, such as you shall not commit any violence against others, unless it's prescribed as required for a certain ritual. And you shall do some chanting, you'll get up in the morning, you'll do your basic rituals, Sandhya Vandanam, do a bit of Gayatri and meditation in a traditional context, in a modern, in a contemporary context, what it would mean that you will start going into that area where you are supposed to commit more and more errors. And you start identifying things which is going to add value to your life. And there are no dearth of good books, how to turn around, how to do good things. There are dozens and dozens, millions of books actually. So he's saying you pick up the Shastra, whatever is Shastra Vihita, you follow that. Purvam hi kamadi pratibandha sriyo na acharati. Yena Purushartha Siddhe. What this guy was doing earlier, because he was entering into the Asri Shampat. He was into gambling, he was into flirtations and infatuations, cheating, playing with others' future, harming others, cutting others down in the meetings or at the back of them, being cruel, rude to people. He was doing all that, isn't it? That is what he took great play. And then he was too egotistic, very full of himself. These are the things he was associated with. Now he's not doing this. Then what he was doing when he was having this Asuri Sampat, Purvami Kamadhi Pratibaddaha. He was trapped by the power of 3 things, Kama, Krodha, and Lobha. So he was Pratibadha, he was bound up, he was imprisoned, cased by these walls, 3 walls. What are these walls? Kama, Krodha, and Lobha. He was blinded by this. So he couldn't see the truth. He couldn't see what is in interest of his long-term interest. Sreyo no acharati. So he would not do what is actually beneficial for him. What will he do? He'll do all opposite things which will harm him. So acharati yena purushartha siddhe. What is the dharma artha kama mukhya? Which should have been possible. This fellow would not do that because of the fact that he's blinded by these negative 3 qualities. Asreyasya acharati. Not only he is not doing anything good, he'll start doing bad things. He'll try to wreck somebody's life. He'll try to tell a lie. He'll try to unnecessarily mock at somebody or misbehave with someone. He gets great pleasure out of these things. So, Asreyas Asarati, which is counterproductive, is contrary to his long term interest. He does those things. Yena Niraya Pataha Syat. What is Niraya? Naraka. As a result of which he's going to go down the hill. He'll hit the rock bottom. Call it hell in the religious language. Aduna, however, now, because he has rescued himself out, he has kind of quarantined himself, prevented, he has sort of erected a few moral barricades, a few barricades made very sensitively with Guru Upadesha, and a few abhyasas that he is doing, these new invisible barricades of, and he's trying to live within a virtuous circle. And when he is living within this new virtuous circle where he is protected from outside evils, what does he do? Adhuna tat pratibandha rahitaha. That is kama, krodho, lovadi pratibandha rahitaha. These three obstructions which prevent our spiritual growth, we have removed them. These were the drag on our growth. Once they are removed, the debt has been repaid, then whatever money comes in, that's your income. It will not go into debt servicing. Similarly, here, tat pratibandha rahitaha, son, asreyo na acharati. He is not taking any more loans. He is not doing any more bad karmas. No. What is going to harm him, he stops doing that. Sreyascha acharati, and then he does what is in his interest. Certain positive things, certain good things. Tataha, and therefore, what happens? Ahikam sukham anubhuya. Therefore, he starts getting a few quick returns on his good investments in good, new, re-energized, and his renewed moral life, and he's investing in it, and therefore they start producing a few green shoots. He gets the benefit of them. So he has a few sansarika sukhas, like people start behaving nicely with him. His wife is kinder to him. His children are more respectful because he's turning out to be a reasonably good guy. Samyak Dhi Dwara, and then he has a comprehensive understanding because he started reading Bhagavad Gita. He's listening to maybe YouTube talks on some Upanishads. He's trying to change his life. Samyak Dhi Dwara Yati Param Gati Moksham. Ultimately, he's free. Not in one birth, maybe, not in a couple of years. It takes a long time. But Bhagavan is motivating a guy who is down in the dumps, and therefore he's sort of giving him promise of great recovery in very short time. And that's the only way to go, to talk to somebody who needs a bit of help and motivation and support and stuff like that. Here, I was telling you yesterday that, please remind me, I'll tell you a story. I read it, you can also go there. There's something called, there's a kind of network for psychotherapy studies, and it's International Institute of Psychotherapy or something, and they put online a lot of free reading material. You can also find them. And there was one book I had downloaded, and I was reading a few pages. What happened is that there was a psychiatrist, and he had a friend who was materially very successful, but was very wayward morally. He was very cruel to his wife. He was not loyal. He was not affectionate to his children. And he's lived his life, and he used to fall into depression again and again. And he used to come to this guy who was a psychiatrist, a counselor, to spend time with him, to share his depressions and his anxieties and his playful flirtations outside marriage and all that he used to tell. And the psychiatrist had a very good case study with him. A guy who knows his problems but not being able to come out of it. And he used to always listen to his stories. I mean, and the guy was very well off and rich, so he was also paying this friend. And suddenly he stopped coming to this, and he meets him after about 10 years. And he's already in his early 50s, maybe. And then he says, "What happened to you?" He thought maybe he has already cracked. He's become a, maybe living on the streets because he's kind of he cracked up and he sort of couldn't return, or he had a major depression or something. But he finds that he's looking very happy and peaceful. He said, "What happened to you?" Then this guy says that, I started living differently. He said, "I am not going to charge you, but I want to hear your story." because I want to sort of note down, because it looks like a case of recovery without any help. So can you tell me your story? I'm going to pay you, but please tell me my story, your story. We're good friends. So this guy, who now looks very happy and peaceful, agrees to tell his story to the psychiatrist. And he goes to the psychiatrist and they sit and they have a conversation. Now, in the conversation, this guy says, "You know what happened? I figured out that my wife has died of depression. And that was a turning point. I had a few losses in my business. The woman I was having a relationship with was cheating me. So she was seeing somebody else. And there were a combination of factors that put me into some depression. I wanted to live differently. So I wanted looking for my family. And if I found that my wife is dead, and I was not even properly informed. I don't exactly remember the story, something like this. And then he approaches his daughter, who is now sort of married. He says, "Can I sort of re-engage with you as a parent?" And she never liked her father because he was so insensitive, and lived here and there. And he says, "But Papa, we have nothing to share. I mean, you abandoned me when I was barely 10 years of age." He says, "Yeah, but I would you like to give me a second chance? I mean, it seems that you have conceived them, and would you like me to come and just work as a mates, as an assistant, as a help, household help in your house?" The daughter sort of looks at him and finds he's depressed, and this is okay, come and stay with. She talks to her friend, her husband, and they said, "Okay, let this guy live here because he's not going to be financially dependent on us. Let him stay with us. What's the problem?" So he helps his daughter with cooking. He apologized to her, saying, "I'm so sad that I cannot apologize to my wife." And he sort of cooks the food. And then, after some time, the daughter has a child. He starts babysitting. And he absolutely never believed in God, but he starts going to the church. So he's just acting. And he did all that because he read a poem or story of somewhere where he says, "Okay, you don't believe in God, but just fake it that you believe in God and try living a life presuming that actually there's a God watching. It's just a psychological experiment." And this guy agreed to participate in that experiment psychologically. And therefore, he started doing all this. And after some time, what happened was he found there are genuine changes in the way he's looking at life and the way others are believing him or dealing with him. He's getting more love and respect, and he's being accepted back into the family circle, because the grandchild is in love with its grandpa. The daughter starts loving her father, despite the fact that he has lost an opportunity to be kind and compassionate and give it back to his wife, whatever love and affection he had received. It's a new life he's trying to live, and that is very satisfying. And this friend, the psychiatrist, asks him, "So, do you believe in God?" He says, "No, I am not yet able to believe in God." He said, "Do you think you have become a good man?" He says, "I'm not sure. I don't think I've become a good man. I've committed a lot of errors in my life. But are you happy?" He said, "I don't know if I'm happy, but I feel relieved. I feel very light. I'm happy to die like this. I do not know if I'm a morally good man. I do not know if God will embrace me after I die. I have no regrets now. I have regrets when I look back, but I'm living a new life." That is the thing that Bhagavan is talking here. That this guy who rescues himself out of these three gates towards a life of darkness, once he stays out of it, stays away from it, he gives himself an enormous chance to live a virtuous life. Because then his sattvika and rajasika, the positive things, will emerge in him. He'll do a few activities and he may take interest. And Bhagavan has mentioned that you have karma yogis, you have jnana yogis, and you have yogis. And the fourth category people are the ones who are not good karma yogis or raja yogis or jnana yogis. They don't understand any of these things, but they blindly believe the words of a good acharya or a teacher or shastra, and they are shruti parayanaha. They have highest regard for whatever is written in the Upanishads and all, and they regard all these as true. Whether they realize it, whether they have understood all that, that's a secondary point. But it starts working in their lives. I mean, it's like a mechanic doesn't understand engineering, but he is able to fix the car, right? He's able to fix the generator, and he's dealing with life. He's dealing with that machine. Is not informed by, is not enriched with a great comprehensive understanding of engineering. It's like a broker who has learned a few tricks and is making money in the stock market as a fairly good investor without understanding anything about portfolio management and the details of it. He's not into economic analysis or this or that. He just intuitively does a few investments, watching good, successful, well informed investors. He doesn't take any risks. He finds a middle path and he survives fairly because he doesn't have greed or anything. All of us, in a certain way, fall in that category. It's impossible to have in one life a complete, integrated, comprehensive understanding of life and answers to all the problems in line with the words of wisdom which are available in the Upanishads. It takes a long time even to read all the Upanishads. But what Bhagavad Gita here says is that if we can stay away from these basic three or four problems which drag us down and then look up and have and we have faith in this text, in the sense we invest our belief, we invest our attention to these words of the divine as in this Bhagavad Gita, even though you don't understand any commentaries and all, but the basic advice is give ourselves a chance, we have a fair chance of success. That's what Bhagavan says, and that's very, very important towards the end of this 16th chapter. So he says, Ya Sastra. So in the 23rd sentence, verse, he says, Ya Sastra Vidhimusrujya Bhartate Kamakaratah Nasa Siddhim Avapnoti Na Sukham Na Param Gatim. And then he alerts us again. So if you can stay away from these three danger zones, there's a huge possibility, there's enormous possibility that you may make a turnaround in your life, wherever you are, not a problem. In case if you cannot, if you actually enter into any of these three gates or three gates, kama, krodha, and lobha, desire or craving, and then anger and greed, intensely they play out in your lives, then what happens? Yah Sastra Vidhim Utsrujya. He rejects. Who cares for all this? I don't care to hoots about all these books and stuff like that. He says, it's just one life, I'm living the way I want. He's an antichrist, or as they call it, anti-hero in the literature. Then what happens? Bhartate Kamakarataha. How does he live? By fulfilling his desires. He's a Kamakara. Right? And then Nasa Siddhim Avapnoti. Why do we do karma? As per Bhagavad Gita, we do karma for Antakarana Siddhi. This karma is like a sanitizer of our consciousness. If we, I think it was John Byron, if I'm right, he said a beautiful thing that an eternal holiday is actually what we call hell. So if somebody grants us an eternal holiday, that is the hell. One has to do certain things to be happy, certain positive things, certain things. You could be writing some activities. But if there's no activity and you ask a person, I'll give you food and watch television sets and stuff like that, nothing could be worse than that. So this guy, by all of us do work to purify, to sanitize our consciousness, have antakarana suddhi, feel good and light. They don't get that. Why? They don't follow the rules of karma yoga. They have phala sangha, or craving for results, much more intensely than in case of normal sansarika people. These are these rakshasas and asuras. They are amongst us. And then what happens? The benefit of karma, which is antakarana siddhi, that doesn't happen. That is siddhi, no. Their activities are not fulfilled because they're giving them negative results. And finally, what? No sukham. Here, ahika sukha, no, because they're full of, because these things, it's like you're obsessed with results. So, if you might be having the best car on earth, but you're so much obsessed with things, and you could actually make an accident. And that happens all the time with a lot of people. And now param gatim. And then because they are not interested in shreya, the paralokika things, what will happen after this birth, they don't even believe in it, then obviously they don't go. That means neither now you're going to enjoy your life. If you're not somebody who believes in hell and heaven, fine, not a problem. What the sentence would mean? First of all, whatever you're doing is not going to be successful in the right sense of the term. You might complete it, but it will not give you what you're looking for. You'll not get what, because to fulfill which you did this particular thing. Whatever work we do, these are ways or means to fulfill certain ends. The results, you might have the outputs, you will not have the outcomes. You will not have the desired results. It's like you build a school building that doesn't become a school if you don't find students and teachers and monitor and stuff like that. Your goal is to ensure community learning. So you want to improve attendance, you want to improve learning outcomes among certain rural children. Therefore, you set up a school, and the result matrix, what is written, you'll do an evaluation to check what are the learning outcomes out of this investment. After 1 year, what has happened? You have constructed a building. You have given appointment letters to two, three guys, some educational volunteers as they call. Let's imagine this is a small community school or something. Then you go there after 5 years to do an evaluation. You get a big zero because you haven't paid attention to the whole process. You have only done the output. Similarly, the Asuric people, they'll do the things, the hard things, the outputs. But the outcomes, the learning outcomes, the positive ones, the qualitative outcomes, they don't achieve it. No siddhi, number one. Number two, no sukham. Without siddhi also, what sukha? Because your goals have not been fulfilled. You might attempt to do another thing, but you're not going there because the understanding is faulty. And the future thing, forget about Swarga, Paraloka, even during this life, 5 years hence, they're not going to feel better. They're only going to feel worse because they're going down the hill. That is how we could look at it. But let's look at the traditional interpretation because that is the most important thing to keep in mind. I once in a while mention these other ways of looking at it because in case you are having a conversation with somebody who is neither interested in Gita nor interested in text, but you just want to make it a point, I think you could always rephrase it in a language which will make sense to him. See, what is Shastra? That is the first explanation is giving. Sisyate anusishyate apurva artho bodhyate anena iti Shastra. So, what is Shastra? Sasana Shastra. Something which gives us guidance, which disciplines us, which tells us what not to do, which tells us what to do. So, it has Vidhi Parakavakyas, it has Nishedha Parakavakyas. And Vidhi and Nishedha, both of these things are there. So, here what he says, Sisyate Anusishyate. So, it does Anusasana, and it does Sasana, Anusasana, and Apurva Artha Bodhyate. And there are certain things, Dharma, like for example, you will go to Swarga. If you do the Yaga, you'll go to Swarga. If you do this, you'll get this benefit. Udvida Jajeta Pashukama, there's a Vidivakya. There's a Udvida Jagya that you have to do. If you want more cattle, you will get that. There is something called Apurva. What is Apurva? What you don't see. That is a virtue which is in seed form. It's like a software. It stays in your Atma, they say. Because we leave this body, and there is a Kariri Yaga for rain. So there's something which will happen during this life, which will happen after. Like Putrishti Yaga, you don't have a son, you do this Yaga to have a son. Now, it's not going to happen in the next life. Well, logically, you should have it in this life because you are sonless in this life. You don't know whether you're going to be sonless in the next life or without a child in the next life. So certain rituals are done to get some results during this life and certain to get some results in the next life. So what he's saying here is that these Veda, that Shastra is one, which tells us what to do and also disciplines us, gives us a good guidance, and then explain to us what kind of activities lead to what kind of results in bare simple words. Anena iti Shastra. And what is that Shastra? He's saying Mukhyataha is Vedas. Vedaha tad upajivi smriti purana adicha. So there are a lot of people who cannot make sense of the Vedas, and therefore there are Puranas which are easier to understand. The Sanskrit is damn easy in the Puranas. Of course, it's very difficult now because we have sort of um, created a disjunction between the language and the people by banishing Sanskrit out of conversation in the universities. So the Shastra, so you can have smritis like Bhagavad Gita itself is a smriti, and like other kinds of smritis are there, like Jagnavalkya Smriti or Gautama Smriti or Apastamba Smriti. A lot of smriti Shastras, and then the Puranas, like Bhagavatam and all of the Puranas. So then what happens is saying Veda Upajiv Smriti Purana Dicha Tat Sambandhi. There is something called Vidhiling. Those who have some familiarity with Sanskrit, we have this Dasagana, the Kriyavachaka Sabda, like Pathati, Pat Dhatu. It has these Dasaganas. So it is, we only know that past, present, and future, and present imperfect, and present indefinite, past imperfect. So all these things we have studied in English. Now in Sanskrit, they are Dasaganas. So there is something called Vidhiling and Ashirling. So it's saying that you are advised to do it and you are kind of counseled to do it. One is order, the other one is Ashirling. So there are different ways in which there is a past. So there is a Adyatana lung, lung, and there is a lung, all these. Then there is a lit, which is Parokhya lit. You haven't seen Rama had gone to jungle. Have you seen it? No. So it's Parokhya lit, which you have heard. You haven't directly experienced. So you have lit lakara. So there are difficult rules there. Here there is a vidhiling, pathet, yajeta, all those things. Now here, Swarga Kama Yajeta, the one who wants to go to Swarga, that kind of a guy who has that desire, he should do some yaga karma. That Yajeta, Yaj Dhatu, Ta Pratyaya, that is Vidhiling is mentioned. Now in Sanskrit, there is something called Lingtva and Akhyatatva. What is Akhyata? That Dhatu thing which is happening. Yajeta means that he should do yaga karma kare. आख्यात क्या है वो यजेत में जो तो है first is akhyata. There are two bhavanas again. I'm just getting into Mimamsa Darshana. Something called Savdi Bhavana, another is called Arthi Bhavana. What is Arthi Bhavana? Savdi Bhavana is a Swadhyaya Adhitavya one should do. And why you have this? Swadhyaya, you should study the Vedas. And when you read it, the Uddesya or the objective of studying Vedas is to have Arthi Bhavana. You know what are the karmas you would like to do. Like you should look at your syllabi if you join a course. What do you get by looking at these papers and what are the contents there? You know how much you have to study, you have motivation to study, isn't it? So that is Arthi Bhavana and Sabda Bhavana. So then the Akhyatattva Yajeta, that karma paraka aspect of that particular word Yajeta is called Arthi Bhavana, that gives you the knowledge that you have to do a Yaga Kriya. The goal cannot be Yaga Kriya. Why? Because Yaga Kriya is painful. You're going to sweat and you'll be sitting next to the fire. You have to spend a lot of money. It's not going to benefit. So they have to imagine what is actually Phala Pradayaka. What is that? Maybe a good son, maybe wealth, maybe good health, maybe wisdom. All these good things. These are the Phala. This Yaga is that particular karma. Right? And you're doing it. And then how to do it? That the karanas, the drabya, devata, all that. And then what you have? You have iti kartaveta, how to do it. Katham bhavayet. Kim bhavayet is that karma, what to do. Kena bhavayet, with what instruments. Katham bhavayet, how to do it. These are all in Mimamsa Darshana. Here it's saying that Kim kuryat. So you say Swarga Kama Yajeta. So there is a link to aspect, that vidhiling. He's saying that is the Sabdi Bhavana thing that creates desire in you to do a few yaga. Then you will do it. So he's saying this, that's why he's mentioned vidhiling, vidhiling adi sabdaha kuryat, na kuryat, karna chahiye, nahi karna chahiye. Ityevam pravartana nivartanatmakaha. Kuryat, you should do it, do's. Then what? That is a pravartanatmaka. It motivates you. It induces action in you. But he said you shouldn't. If you do it, you'll be fired. That vakya is nivartanatmaka. It dissuades you from committing a wrong. That is in very simple language. So the Veda, the scripture, has certain advices which are shown to you as beneficial so that you would have interest in them. And there are certain vakyas which are shown as not beneficial or harmful, and therefore you will stay away from them. These are Pratisheda Vakyas. So, Brahma, and then why this Vidhi, what he's saying? The Purva Mimamsakas, they think that all the Veda is fundamentally about different karmas and rituals. Rituals are central to the Vedic literature, according to them. What the Vedantis say, no, whole of Veda is not Vidhi Paraka because there are a few sentences like, say, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. What is the Vidhi there? There is no Vidhi. There is Jnana Paraka, Satya Paraka. So all the language, all the texts in Veda is not about work or karma. There are few things to know, to meditate on. I am Atma Brahma, Tattvamasi, you are that. उसमें विधि क्या है? कोई या करना है. Somebody says Tattvamasi, I am Atma Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi. इसमें क्या काम करना है? You have to find out. You have to do Artha Nirupana and meditate on what is the inner message hiding in this particular word, Tattvamasi. You are that. I am a human being. I'm going to die. And he's saying that I am Brahman. Really? I'm limited. Brahman is unlimited. I'm Alpagya. Brahma is Sarvagya. So how do I make sense of it? Okay, he's talking about the fact that both of you are essentially pure consciousness. And this consciousness, through Vivartavada, has taken a certain format called a human body and a mind, the Panchakosas and stuff like that. But the pure consciousness, which abides in us, and because of which I am what I am, that foundation is no different from the universe, the foundation of this universe, which is pure consciousness. Like the space which is within a certain pot or a glass is no different from space pure. So these are the ways in which we meditate, which will liberate us. So these are what Jnana Paraka, not Vidhi Paraka. Therefore, he's saying Nishedha Atiktamami Brahmapadipadakam Sastramasti. That is Upanishad. So all these that Asuri Tattva, because he's a Vedanti Madhusudan, so the backdoor brings home this point that in the Vedas it's not only about rituals, because we are Vedantis, we are not doing any rituals. We don't sacrifice any animals. We sit in meditation, we study. Therefore, he says, Brahmapati Padakam Masti. And these are the statements, Mahavakyas, and the literature that we are interested in. Susaitum Vidhi Sabdaha. So Bhagavan says, Sastra Vidhim Ustrudya. These people don't follow the Vidhis. So they will not do Antakarana Suddhi. They don't even do the basic karmas, Niskama karmas. Then forget about their chances of getting Vairagya and then moving towards Upanishads. Utsrujya Asradhaya. Usrujya means what? They abandon these things and then they have no interest, they have no respect, they have no Shraddha in the Acharya Vakya or Shastra Vakyas. And what is Asradhaya Parityajya? They abandon them. Then what do they become? They become Kamakaraha and Kamataha because they have this great craving to fulfill all their desires. Swecha Matrena Vartate. So they live as they wish. And there was this song some years back, Meri Marchi, I do what I want. Who the hell are you? So Swecha Matrena Bhartate, Bihitam api na acharati. Whatever is prescribed or advised, either by parents or teachers, by books, they don't follow it. Nisiddham api acharati. What is prohibited, they do it. Why? They bring in new words. You have these are power structures, these advices that you have good character, be a good guy. These are ideological. They are blinding us. We need to discover what is the truth. How? Try to subvert this moral universe. That is what the ultra left and the ultra postmodernists say, that the idea is to challenge the hegemony of this moral universe and let's challenge it through transgressions. So they do everything they want. Nisiddham api acharati yaha sa siddhim. A person who starts doing like that, reads a few Western philosophy books or Indian philosophy books, becomes an anarchist, a rebel, and indulges in anything he wants. Even a lot of people do, 90% of the people who indulge in Prastisiddha Karyas have no access to Western literature. They don't read anything. They're just asuras. Purushartham prapti yogyatam antakarna suddhim karmani kurvan api na apnoti. So they do a lot of karmas. They will do yagas, but they do it why? Because of dambha, because of their egotism. So they don't get the benefit thereof. They will do dana to a charity station. Why are they doing it? To show off. So that particular grace, because they give it to the children, but they throw it at children, or they do it out of great anger or whatever, that's showing off. So they don't believe that inner light which is supposed to get generated as a result of this act of charity, they don't benefit. So even if they do Swechha Matrana Bhartita Bhitam Apina Acharati and Nisiddham Api Acharati Yaha, that fellow Siddhim Purushartham Purushartha Prapti Yogyata Antakarana Suddhim Karmani Kurmanapi, even though they do the karmas which are supposed to purify their consciousness, that doesn't help them. Why? Because they're clouded by this raga, vesha. And then na sukham aikam, and they don't get any sansarika sukha. They're so full of themselves, nobody likes them. Everybody's scared of them. The wife may not say anything, she hates him. Children hate him, even though they may not say anything. Everybody's afraid of him because that fellow believes in Machiavelli's advice. It's better to be feared than loved. He's feared, but he's hated. So there is no happiness in his life. He's a loner. Napi param prakristim gartim swargam mokshamba. So neither he goes to Swarga after death, nor he gets liberation. Where does he go? Bhagavan has already mentioned. I'm going to send him down. Where? Maybe I'm going to make him a Siberian tiger, a Bengal tiger, or maybe a lion, somewhere in Africa, in Serengeti or somewhere, and he's going to move around and run after his games the way he's running after his victims as a human being. And then in the verse number 24, what does he say? Is therefore he's giving the final positive advice in this chapter number 16. After the verse number 21, where he advises don't go into these three gates, he's giving some positive advice in the verse number 24. Tasma sastram pramanam te karya vyavastitau gyatva sastra vidhanuktam karma kartum iharharsi. My dear Arjuna, my friend, my boy, please carefully listen to me. Therefore, if you have carefully heard all that is told you so far, Sastram Pramanam, have faith in this spiritual literature. They don't cheat you because Shruti is referred to as Shruti Bhagavati. This is referred to as a mother because the mother doesn't harm the child. She'll always try to protect. And the Shruti Vakyas, they are meant to help us in all difficult situations. They are pramana. We have to have faith in them. And why? How do they help us? Karya akarya vyavasthito. So they tell us what is to be done, what is not to be done. That vyavastha they give us. Jnatva, and therefore by knowing, by understanding, Sastra Vidhan Uktam, whatever is explained in the Sastra Vidhanas, the Vidhis and Nisedha Vakyas, by knowing this, Karma Kartum Iha Arhasi. So you should follow them and do the work. What does it mean? You are a Kshatriya, you're married, you have a wife, you have a few children, you have lost your kingdom, you're fighting for your rights, you're here in the warfield, and you are telling big things, philosophical sentences, like a university student who has some exams and he doesn't like exams, so he's reading a lot of philosophical points. So you are like that. And you are speaking big philosophy, but you have a big loan on your head. So you start doing work. You have come here to fight for your rights, fight for your rights. Don't act up, don't behave like a philosopher. That's only kind of giving an indication that either you're afraid or you do not understand what are the challenges, what is the real challenge of your life. So yasma sastra vimukhataya, if you move away, look away from the scriptures, the spiritual texts, then what will you become? You reject the text. Where do you go? You go to your desires. If you say no to good advice, what do you follow? You follow your low nature. If you don't follow your discrimination, power of discrimination, what do you follow? Whatever comes to your mind. You make snap judgments, go down. So he's saying, Kamadhina pravriti Ahika paratrika sarva purushartha ayogyaha tasmate tava sreyavarthinaha. You are a sreyarthi. You want to do things in the long-term interest of yours. That's why you have sought my advice. You said that you're my guru. Tell me what to do. And we have had a long discussion so far. So you are interested in Shreya, not Priya. You are a moral guy. You won a lot of gold. You are called Dhananjay. You won that dhana, you gave it away for distribution among people. Sinasumya Yajna. You won the privilege to marry a beautiful princess. Mother says, share whatever benefit you have. You are ready to marry her along with your brothers. Okay. And then what? You had a fight with Lord Shiva. And then, one of those fairies of the Swargaloka wanted to be in love with you. You addressed her as mother. So you are a good guy. You know what is Shreya. And that is why I'm telling you Bhagavad Gita. And because you are a bright student, you have enormous potential. Don't you understand that if you look away from your coursework and your PhD thesis, what do? You'll do all stupid things. Kama, dhina, prabriti, ahika, paratrika, sarva, purushartha, ayogyaha. You will become ineligible to enjoy any benefit either on earth or after death. If you don't finish your coursework, you will neither get any job, nor will you get any scholarship. You'll be thrown out of the campus. You will not find anywhere to go. That's what the professor says, and that's what Lord Krishna is telling his students. Okay? And therefore, Sriyarthinaha Karya Akarya Vyavastito. So you try to figure out what is Karya and what is Akarya. Kim Karyam, Kim Akaryam, Iti Visaye Sastram. So what tells you what is to be done and what is not to be done? The scriptures, the Veda, Tat Upajivi Smriti Puranadi come. And also you have already read them. Remind yourself what is advised in the spiritual scriptures. Okay, so whatever, if you are a manager, you are a finance guy, whatever, look at your own shastras, your agamas. But so for overall life is concerned, pay an attention to what is written in the Upanishads, what is written in Bhagavad Gita, Pramana Bodhakam, and these are the proof of what is done, doable, and what's not. And they tell you how to move forward, Bodhakam. Na anya, nothing else. Because if you say no to these, what you are saying yes to your own Lord desires. Bhagavan is giving another last alert and he's saying, Na anyat swo utpreksha buddha vakyadi iti abhiprayah. So you reject this text and then what do you follow? You follow swo utpreksha baddha. Means what? What does that mean? Utpreksha can mean it's a particular kavya. It's a technical word here of comparing, of simile and all. The simple word is that utpreksha is when you desperately want to see. You have your icha, and because of your own desire you want to interpret and understand life is like this. I want to do this. Why? I don't know. It's freedom of choice. I'm a human being, and so therefore I'll do whatever I want. We have fundamental rights. Where do you end up there? The freedom guaranteed by the constitution is a necessary condition for growth and success, not a sufficient condition for you to do anything. They just give you a space. What to do, they don't tell you. They tell you what freedom you have. I mean, we have freedom, but we can't fly. Can we? We can't fly. Try flying. Okay, you have to buy an air ticket. Then only can you fly. You can't fly on your own. So, what to do, where to reach, the basic freedoms guaranteed by society or by normal, the human society doesn't lead us anywhere. Therefore, we have to look at what are the wise words hidden here so that we don't commit any errors of judgment. Evam cha iha karmadhikara bhumau. So, because you are doing karmadhikara, sastra vidhanena kuryat na kuryat iti evam pravartana nivartana rupena vidhi ling vidhi vaidika ling adi padena uktam karma vihitam pratisiddham cha jnatva. So let me explain till now. Evam cha. Then he's now coming back to the theological context. He's saying that the karma adhikara bhumo. That means right now what? You are not a sannyasi. You are in the karma yoga phase. So in the karma adhikara bhumi, you got to figure out what you can do, what you cannot do. But you are a kshatriya. You are a royal guy. You are a soldier. You're supposed to fight. That's your duty. It's not violence. I mean, somebody who is He's chosen to be in the army. He says, I don't want to do violence. I mean, why did you choose that job? That involves some killing. But that killing is not out of anger or greed or anything. It's just about protecting your country and doing your duty. I mean, this is how the society is organized. And if it's not for you to judge that once you have gone there. That's what he's saying. So karmadikara bhumo, sastra vidhan, and whatever is prescribed for you, kuryan, no kuryan, whether you to do it, no, that is what is motivating or what is dissuading in nature. Vaidika ling adi padena uktam. You do this, you do that, that vidhiling, kuryat. Karma vihitam pratisiddham. You don't do it or you do it. Cha gyatva, having known that, nisiddham varjayan. Refute, reject, put down what is prohibited, what you shouldn't do. And then what? Vihitam kshatriyasya yuddhadi karmam tvam kartum arasi. You are a royal soldier, you're a king. You're fighting for your rights, so that's your duty. You're supposed to defend your people's rights as their king. I mean, you lost your kingdom. What happens to the people? You lost a gamble and the country is given away, but what about the fate of the people? They may be missing out on your love and affection and protection. So you have to fight for that, those people. So what do? You have to do your duty. Sattva suddhi paryantam ityartha. Till you have done your duty and you have done your antakarana shuddhi, then you will deserve to have vairagya and have karma sannyasa or vividisa sannyasa. You can start studying the Upanishads. Ityartha. Tadevam asmin adhyaya sarvasya asurya sampado. This in this chapter, all these asuri sampat, mula bhutan, all these. What are these mula bhutan? Three of them. These are the roots of all the evils. Raga, Kama, Krodha, and Lobha. Mula bhutan. Sarvan, Seya Prapakan, Sarva Asriya Prapakan, whatever is negative, which they bring all those negative things. Sarva Sriya Pratibandhakan, and they obstruct whatever good you can achieve. Mahad Doshan, all wrong things. Kama Krodho Lobhan, Apahaya, that means what? By abandoning them, by defeating them, these three enemies. Seyarthina, because you have the desire to achieve something long term, something good. Shraddha Sastra Prabhanena. You take interest in the scriptures and do what is advised. Tad Upadishtartha Anusthana Parena. Whatever has been advised, you try to observe them in your life. Having done the observation of them, Bhavitavyam iti sampadvayam. What is that bhavitavyam? You look at the good things, that sattvika thing. You try to have the daivi sampat. Okay, sampat dvaya vibhaga pradarsana mukhena nirdharitam. The sampat dvaya, daivi sampat, asuri sampat. By doing definitional elaboration of these two sets of positive and negative qualities, I am essentially elaborating before you what you should be doing and what you should be avoiding. I hope you have got the message. That is how Bhagavan brings this chapter to a close. Iti Sri Mahabharate Sahitayan Vaya saying Bhisma Parvani. Okay, then he's saying that Yoga Sastra Krishna Arjuna Samada Devasura Sambada Vibhagadvayo Sampad Vibhaga Yoga Nama Sarvasodhyaya. So this is how this chapter 16 comes to an end. And we'll take tomorrow is anyway Saturday and Sunday is off. If you're okay, we can meet tomorrow to do a summary of it. We can do a brief summary. And on Monday, we'll start the chapter 17. Okay, so I'll stop here. And if you have any questions, you can ask or do the Santi mantras.